This question says, what is the mass percent of sulfur in aluminum sulfate? So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what aluminum sulfate is. So if you go to your periodic table, aluminum is in group 3A, so it's +3. So we have Al 3+. Sulfate is one of those polyatomic ions that you need to know, and sulfate is SO4 2-. We cross them, and what we end up with is Al2SO4 3. So this is what aluminum sulfate is. Now to find the mass percent, we need to know the formula for the mass percent. And the mass percent is equal to the mass of the element, in this case sulfur, divided by the mass of the compound, in this case, which is Al2SO4 3, and because it's a percentage, we multiply by 100. Now your question would become, well, how are you going to know the mass of the sulfur and the mass of aluminum sulfate if you don't have a specific amount? That's why you have to decide on a specific amount. And I would suggest that we decide the specific amount is 1 mole. Okay, so we have 1 mole of aluminum sulfate. What is the mass of sulfur in 1 mole? What is the mass of aluminum sulfate in 1 mole? Well, the mass of aluminum sulfate in 1 mole is the molar mass. The mass of sulfur is 3 times the molar mass of sulfur because there are 3 sulfates. Each sulfate contains 1 sulfur, so therefore there are 3 sulfurs. If you're asked for oxygen, there's actually 12 oxygens. Each sulfate contains 4 oxygens, and there are 3 of them, so you have to multiply these. There's 12 total oxygens, but we care about the sulfur, and there are 3 of them. So we want to put 3 times the molar mass of sulfur, because there's 3 sulfurs, over the molar mass of aluminum sulfate. Now I'm lazy. Aluminum sulfate is too big for me to try to find the molar mass. You could do that. All right, you could do an aluminum plus 3 times sulfur plus 12 times oxygen, or you could just Google it. Okay, it's up to you. So the mass of the sulfur is 3 times the molar mass of the sulfur, which is 3 times 32.07 grams, divided by the molar mass of aluminum sulfate, which if you look it up, is 342.15 grams per mole. No, you could put these as grams or grams per mole. It doesn't matter. If you assume that you have 1 mole, you have this many grams. So you don't really need the per mole part. And then we need to multiply that by 100. Now it's a simple math problem. This has 4 sig figs. This has 5 sig figs. So our answer should have 4 sig figs. And in this case, the answer comes out to be 28.12% sulfur.